Tonight on Sports for All, we are thrilled to have with us the first fully homegrown sports broadcaster to make it to ESPN, Aaron Atayde. Now, this guy, well, according to his brother, it was a dream of his to work at ESPN, and so from one day became day one for Aaron Atayde. So, Aaron, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to hear from people back home. It's great to be here on the show, and let's talk about some sports.
Okay, with me also is my co-host Brian, the Godfather Yalom.
Yes, thank you, Vince. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to talk with Aaron. So much to ask Aaron. I'm sure we're gonna have fun tonight.
Hopefully, well, morning for me.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Morning on your end. Yeah.
All right. Well, Aaron, walk us through how was what happened? I mean, did they reach out to you? What what happened? Walk us through the process.
Well, so I was working for ESPN 5 in Manila. I mean, I was working for TV5 for I think a good 12 years, and like 11 to 12 years. On my last 2 years, of course, I was doing Sports Center Philippines, and while I was working for Sports Center Philippines, they flew me to the States about 2 or 3 times. My first time I was here was in Bristol, Connecticut, 3 years ago, and I did my training for Sports Center. I sat down in their bullpen. I sat down with their producers, their writers, to see how it's actually done, and they taught me and Leah Cruz how to do it. Of course, it's different when you learn for a week, and you're still jet lagged and all that kind of stuff. It's a very different situation, but I got very close to a lot of the people here. And then another year goes by, still working for ESPN 5. They flew me to the ESPYs, which is, of course, like the Oscars for sports. And again, building relations with the ESPN folks of ESPN International. And when the whole pandemic happened and TV5 no longer was looking at using ESPN and SportsCenter, I was out of a job for about 2 years, literally doing nothing. So I kind of told myself, you know what, maybe it's time for me to move back to the States. I was born and raised in the States. So luckily enough, I have the opportunity to have an American passport. So I just decided, you know what, I'm going to move back. When everything settles down, then we'll see what happens to my career. But if it's over, it's over. If my sports broadcasting career is done, then it's done. But I did text and I sent an email to my bosses here at ESPN US and said, if there's any job in any studio, working the coffee maker or the Xerox machine or anything, I will do anything for you guys. Just let me know. I plan on flying over in June. And this was all the way back in October. And luckily enough, an opening, came up, and hold on, there you go. An opening happened here in ESPN International, and they were kind enough to give it to me. This offer came in about mid-March. I kept it under wraps. I didn't tell anyone except for my friends and my family, because the ultimate baka maudlot ng Pinoy was going through my head. And a few months later, here we are.
And you said you went through the training. Tell us, what are the differences or similarities between the training you got here and the training you got over there?
Well, the training is when you're doing the show. The best way that I can explain it is when you're doing a show like this, like they say, it's like riding a bike, but you're riding different bikes, so to say. It's like riding a Dipajak and a Harley Davidson. The mechanics should be kind of the same. It's just the equipment is a little bit different. The training and what you're expected of here in the US is astronomically higher. When I was working for SportsCenter in the Philippines, and a lot of the different shows that I was working with in the Philippines, we had writers, we had producers, we had line editors, we had executive producers, associate producers on that kind of level doing the show. Here, I have written every single word of script that I have ever done in the past 7 days that I've been on camera, and they give you that creative control. They give you that, okay, you can write whatever you want, you can write your jokes the way that you want them to be written, but if you mess up, that's on you. Like, they give you full responsibility, but full responsibility for everything you say as well. So I think that is the biggest thing that separates the way that Philippine TV and ESPN, I guess, I don't want to say all American TV because I wouldn't know. All I know is ESPN at this point. But that's the way that I've been given that kind of liberty that I didn't get in the Philippines.
Have you rubbed elbows with any of the celebrity ESPN sports broadcasters or writers?
Sad to say, right now, not yet, because the ESPN campus is not allowed to have a lot of people. We're at about 30% capacity right now. Like, even our cafeteria is not fully opened. A lot of people like Woj and a lot of the analysts that a lot of people know from the ESPN ranks, like Pablo Torre and all of those guys, they're not even here on campus. They're on the New York office, especially for like Stephen A. and Max Kellerman. They're in the studio in Manhattan. I'm in Bristol, Connecticut, where it's very far away from Manhattan. It's about a 2.5-hour drive away from there. But I always looked at it as, in time. I mean, we're all still getting through this pandemic. They're not going to roll out a red carpet for me just yet. So when I do get the chance to meet everyone, I will be more than happy to do so. But I know I'm here to do some work. I'm not here for sightseeing or all of that. I'm just excited to be here to sit on that chair and tell people some stories about sports.
So from what you've told us, the work there has more responsibilities and it's more tedious.
Yes, absolutely. In the Philippines, when I would do Sports Center Philippines, our show would go on at about 9:30. That would mean I would get to the studio and I would get in front of my computer at about 6:30. So I would have 3 hours to write my entire script, or write my parts of the script, reword the other parts of the script that were written by associate producers or my executive producer, and then I would do the show. And usually that would take me about an hour and a half really to be done, and then I would just try and get comfortable for the show. Now, we start doing our show, like, for instance, last night we did our show at about 8:30 p.m. I started working on that show at 10:30 in the morning. So I was already watching the Euros. I was making my game notes on the Euros. I already saw what the rundown was going to be on the show. Our executive producer already had that laid out. I had what we don't actually have in the Philippines is I have a laptop that is connected to the ESPN server that I can see what the entire lineup is, and I'm writing it in the middle of my hotel room while watching the games, not even having to be at the office. And then when I'm ready to get to the office, I go there, watch the rest of my videos, and yeah, so there's a little bit more, maybe about another 8 more hours of work that you have to put it over here, and I love it though.
All right, Godfather, your turn.
Actually, Aaron, got my interest in that one, that your laptop is connected to the servers,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so I mean, that's like a gold mine for you. So, do you have? Are you sometimes do you find yourself very infatuated, or you don't know what to do with all those information in front of you?
All the time. I've found myself looking at the screen and looking at the rundown and saying, I have no idea what this is. Like, what am I doing here? But it's part of it, and that's the best part about my team. They understand that I'm not that I have been doing this for 15 years. I have been doing broadcasting for 15 years, but they know that the tools that are at my hands are not the usual ones that I've had. So they've been able to sit me down and say, okay, this does this, this does that. If you have any questions, let us know. But they're not like all over my back saying, okay, what are you doing? Like, are you going to do this? Well, you got to do it this way or that way or that way. You can't say this or you can't say that. It's more of, when you need our help, do not be afraid to ask, but we're not going to hound you because we know that you need your creative juices going anyway.
So do you have I mean, what do you do first? I mean, is there any sport that you tend to tackle first with all of those at your right in front of you?
Not really. It depends on the show. Like, for instance, on our show last night, we covered the Euros, of course, which are a very big topic when it comes to the whole Asian market. The Philippines is is actually the only country where it's not a main point of interest in the entire world.
Yes.
So, I've been following football for my entire adult life. So, I mean, when I wake up here, the matches are at like 9 o'clock in the morning. So I have my coffee. Like right now, you can see that I have the Euros going on in the background.
I noticed.
And then I covered that and I checked the rest of the lineup. We had MotoGP, we had F1, we had, of course, the NBA playoffs and all of that. So I first look at what the rundown is, and what my system has been so far is I look at what I already have notes for. Like, for instance, if one of the matches that I had to write about yesterday was the Netherlands versus Austria match, I knew that I already had my pre-match notes written out for that, so I could already write my lead-in into that story. I already knew that I read up on the entire F1 weekend, so I knew the update on Lewis Hamilton and his magic button, and if they were going to move it on the steering wheel, I already read up on that, so I was able to knock that out. So I don't treat it as, okay, we're going to do basketball first, and then we're going to do football next, and then we're going to do like MotoGP or something. I do it more of, okay, I have my information on these things. Let's knock that out first, and then whatever needs research after that, then we'll do that after a cup of coffee when I already have a little bit more of my brain cells working.
All right. Thank you. Okay, back to you, Vince.
Okay, Aaron, like I told you previously, we know what happened to Naomi Osaka, and she pulled out of the French Open, and then she pulled out of Wimbledon. So, what are your thoughts on the relationship between professional athletes and media?
It's very tricky. It's very tricky because there are, like, for instance, for me, I don't want to talk about how things are in Wimbledon or how they are in the French Open, because again, I have no knowledge of that. I've been lucky enough to be in NBA press conferences. I've been extremely lucky enough to be in as many PBA and UAAP press conferences as anyone could think of. And I've been a courtside reporter for both the PBA, the NBA, and all the different sports and different leagues in the Philippines. When it comes to Philippine athletes, actually, what I notice is that the Philippine athletes don't necessarily like talking to the media in the first place. I know for a fact that a lot of them really have no interest in talking to a lot of writers. And I don't know if that's something that's on purpose, or if that is because that is instructions from their mother companies, like, oh, you can't say anything about this and that and that and that. So the relationship between the media and the athletes in the Philippines it's very different from a lot of the different cultures, because I have great relationships with the athletes. Like, a lot of basketball players, whether it would be like Gabe Norwood or Eli Tenorio and all of these guys, I consider them to be some of my really good friends. But when they know that I'm doing it for an interview, it kind of gets a little bit weird. Like the dynamic changes a little bit, and I I've always wondered why that was. I was never able to get an understanding of it. So the way that I saw it was, that's just the way that things are.
Do you think it's partly cultural? It's embedded into the Filipino psyche?
Yeah, I really do. Because um, the idea of pare, hindi ko pwede pag-usapan yan eh. That will always come up. And the pare, off the record na lang tayo. Huwag mo na lang isama yan. Huwag mo na lang isama yan. Because for a lot of athletes, if they say one thing wrong, someone can easily say, you know what, your job is gone. And that's the scary part of it. So I think that the relationship in the Philippines when it comes to the athlete and the media is very, very peculiar because of the way that the relationship is between the athlete and the team owner. You know what I mean? So it trickles down, like the way that the relationship is for all of these athletes. It trickles down because you don't want your boss to get mad at you if you say something wrong. So you'll just not talk to the media.
All right, Aaron, let's move over to MMA.
Sure.
I'm sure you read Joe Rogan's comments about weight cutting should be banned in mixed martial arts. Um, what are your views on that and hydration testing?
Uh, you know, the thing with Joe, Joe knows how to say things. He knows how to get people's attention, and he knows what he needs to be said to, get people talking about what he's saying, and that's what will make people go back to listen to more things that he says. I for one, because the way that I watch MMA has always been, I like watching good fights. It's a little bit different from my understanding whenever it comes to other sports, because I was always late when it came to the MMA scene. I always loved watching MMA because, who doesn't like watching people, get into fights? It's modern day gladiators. So matchmaking and all that has never been something that has been on top of my mind. With weight cutting and trying to make sure that this guy gets into this weight class so that they have a nice fight and all that. Of course, who wouldn't want to see the best fighters fight against each other regardless of weight class? But if there's one thing that we learned from that Jake Paul and Floyd Mayweather fight, not just because they're two big names doesn't mean that it's going to be a good fight.
Okay, we go back to football.
Yeah.
What's the latest on that Danish football player who went down?
Okay, so Christian Eriksen, he had a heart attack in the first part of his match of the Euros. He is a superstar in Denmark. He is one of the most popular names in their country. To put into perspective, he is Denmark's Kiefer Ravena, like that. He's looked at that way. And to some extent, he might even be considered the greatest, one of the greatest football players in Denmark history. So when he went down in the first match of the Euros, the entire football world stopped. And when they brought him, he actually passed away already. He was considered dead, and they had to resuscitate him on the pitch and bring him back. So the Euros, obviously, one of the biggest tournaments in football, as the European nations are the ones that are competing there. He was only 500 meters away from the stadium that he had a heart attack in when he was recuperating. So he was watching the match between Belgium and Denmark, and Belgium is considered one of the favorites in this tournament. So he could actually hear the people cheering for him when Denmark scored the second fastest goal in European Championship history in the first match with him out, and they were playing in his honor. It was such a great moment in sports history because you can't write that. I mean, that having him hear the cheers of an entire nation from his hospital bed, scoring against the strongest team in the tournament, that is what Netflix, movies are made of right there. So it's a great moment. It was great to have him back. It was sad to see what happened, but to see a sporting world come together for a man that they probably didn't even know was amazing to see.
Well, he suffered a heart attack, and then he played in the next game.
No. He was still recuperating. He was watching the game on his TV, but he could open his window and hear the cheers from the stadium. So, for instance, he was in MOA, and the game was in MOA Arena. Parang ganon. That's how close he was to the stadium while he was recuperating.
Is his career over?
That is up to him. I hope not. But at the same time, I hope so as well. I was talking to my co-host Mark Brown about this, who's been a sportscaster for numerous years. He was actually, funny thing is, my co-anchor Mark Brown used to do the international play-by-play for the NBA that was broadcasted in the Philippines back into the 90s and the 2000s. So it's amazing that he's the guy that I'm working with, and he was the one that I learned a lot of stuff from. And we were talking about the whole thing with Christian Eriksen, and his point was there's some athletes that know when it's time to go. There's some athletes that are hard-headed and have to be carried off of the field when, despite being told that they can't go anymore. It is going to be a good test of character to see what kind of person he is and what kind of athlete he is as well.
So you think he's hard-headed? If the doctors tell him it's over for you, time to hang up your cleats, you think he'll get a second, third, fourth opinion?
I think the only opinion that is going to matter to Christian Eriksen is going to be the opinion of his wife. And I think that is something that a lot of people are overlooking here, that doctors might say one thing, but if your wife says it's time to pack up things, we've made enough money, I think we're done.
All right, back to you, Brian.
Okay, I just want to ask Aaron, how crazy is it when you get the NBA news there, especially now that we're in the playoffs and there's no LeBron James? And what's the latest on that on your end?
Well, it's crazy when we get live updates on our computer, when we open up our news application and we get instant updates whenever we can. It's crazy to see everything, all the injuries that are happening in the NBA playoffs, especially with what's going on with Chris Paul, because the weird thing with the whole Chris Paul situation is he's been vaccinated, and the NBA does not have a set protocol on what they do when somebody that is vaccinated is the one that tests positive for COVID-19. It's the weird thing is that we don't know when Phoenix is going to play yet. So, it's advantageous to the Suns that there is some time, and the Suns were very, very specific in saying that they're going to reassess the situation on Saturday, U.S. time. And if you remember, whenever that there is a positive case in the NBA, they're immediately very, very quick to decide, okay, this guy is going to sit out this long because he tested positive and all that kind of stuff. The fact that the NBA is okay to say, okay, well, let's check back in a couple days, means that there's something that is going to be a little bit different in the situation. If the Clippers are able to close this series out technically today, for me, it'll change the way that this dynamic is going to go. For obvious reasons, the Suns are going to be cheering for the Jazz to see this push on another game. But again, this Chris Paul situation, it's very, very difficult to put your finger on. And every single analyst that I've talked to on my show have all said the same thing. 8 or 9 all-stars not being in the playoffs, missing games in the playoffs because of this. It's tough on the league.
Definitely. Actually. And I read something from your side when Rick Carlisle resigned after the Donnie Nelson. I don't know what really happened with Donnie Nelson. Did he really resign or was he fired? There are two stories. I don't know what is run.
See, that is where I think some people kind of. I'll clear it up right now.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah. Okay. Please
So,
do.
so a lot of people think that, okay, especially like a lot of my friends and all that, they think that I come to ESPN and all of a sudden I know all of the stories. I know all the stories. So what I'm lucky to do is I'm lucky enough to ask a lot of great people, a lot of great insiders, their information. I'm not an insider whenever it comes to these kinds of things. As an anchor for Sports Center, my job really is to tell the stories and to ask the questions. I'm not an analyst. I'm not an insider. All I know are stories. And when it comes to like this Rick Carlisle story, I will wait until I have my information from my insiders to tell me. So that is my best way to work around answering that question, Ryan.
Safe answer. Safe answer.
Because I have a follow-up question to that. Tied up to all that is the Supermax contract extension of Luka Doncic.
I would love to see Luka sign an extension and a Supermax extension with the Dallas Mavericks, mainly because if there's any chance for any person in the world that is as nice of a guy as Luka Doncic to sign a contract worth $200 million, by all means sign that. Because if you sign a $200 million contract with a team in the NBA, from what we have learned in the past years of the league, that does not necessarily mean that you're even going to stay there by the end of it all. By next week, you could easily just say, you know what, I'm out. I'm going to take my money and I'm going to go. And this whole time that we've been doing this interview, Kemba Walker has already been traded. So, there are so many things that are going on. And so you never know. So for me, as long as Kemba gets his money, the guy deserves it. He's the face and the future of the league. Get your money. Doesn't necessarily mean you'll be with the Mavericks forever. Enjoy yourself, Luka.
Yep. As you were saying earlier, there are a lot of All-Stars not in the playoffs, but they're kind of stealing the thunder from the playoffs right now.
Yes, they are.
Yep.
Yes, they are. That includes LeBron.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another one. LeBron James, and the case with the Lakers. Okay, Vince, back to you.
The Euros have a lot of side events going on. I'm sure you saw what Cristiano Ronaldo did to that soda brand, put it aside, and then Paul Pogba did the same thing. What what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
What athletes do is their own business. It was funny because Romelu Lukaku from Belgium, who is the MVP for the Italian Serie A, said, caffeinated soda drink, call Rock Nation, his agency, and said, if you need some help, let's talk. So, it's athletes have reached the point already where they are their own brand and they are, they should be respected for it. And it's funny because in the Philippines, there is no country that looks at athletes as brands more than the Philippines. You see players that are in the UAP volleyball league that have more followers than athletes in the NBA. So I will always, and I've worked with a lot of these athletes in the Philippines. So if an athlete or whoever wants to put their own twist and their own branding on anything, they are more than welcome to do so. I am not going to be in any which way judgmental of them for doing any of it, because that's their own prerogative. So if Cristiano Ronaldo, arguably the greatest player to ever step foot on a football pitch, decides not to be sitting beside a bottle of anything, by all means, go ahead, CR7.
Who do you like for the Euros, Aaron? Who are you looking to come out as a winner?
I myself am an England fan. I've been cheering for England for years now. They are from based on the odds and what the bookies are saying. It is England is like second or third, right behind France and Belgium. I think that there are a lot of teams that came in here and there were a lot of questions on, like Italy. There were a lot of questions also on the Netherlands, but as we saw in the second round, I guess, of the group match stages, they have been impressive. But of course, you have to look at France. That team is so stacked. You got Paul Pogba, you have N'Golo Kante in the midfield that are controlling everything there. When you look at the players that they have on top, you have Kylian Mbappe, you have Karim Benzema, who has had a fantastic year for Real Madrid. You have Antoine Griezmann there as well. But a lot of teams with that kind of firepower usually don't have a defense. But with Pavard, with Varane, with Kimpembe, you have to, and even Hugo Lloris in goal, France has to be the odds-on favorite. They are right now the odds-on favorite, and I will pick them. And it was heartbreak for them the last Euros. And funny story is, the last Euros that I watched was at the same exact time of the FIBA OQT in Manila. Yeah. And if you remember correctly, in the FIBA OQT, the Philippines was playing a game against France. Yeah. And it was France and Portugal in the finals of that year. And we, after the game, after the Gilas versus France game in Moa Arena, France qualified for the OQT. They went out. They went out that night. And I went out that night. And I met them. I met Boris Diaw and I met Tony Parker. And they asked the place that we went to if they could watch the Euros finals in the place. So I was watching the finals with France losing, with Tony Parker and Boris Diaw and all of these guys. So I know how angry they were when they lost that finals. And they don't want to, and that was the basketball team. So the French team, the French football team are not going to, they're not going to try and give up this one. They're going to go out and win it.
You also have to look at Portugal. I mean, I'd like to think they're no longer a one-man team with just CR7. You have their youngsters. They're no longer a one-man team. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely, especially with Bruno Fernandes and Ruben Diaz becoming that next level athletes for them. Diogo Jota is there as well, but the question will still remain on the defense. With Joao Cancelo not being there anymore, he was a fantastic right back for them. The questions will still be there. I know Cristiano Ronaldo is 36 and he's still scoring, 2 goals in his first match. It's going to be crazy. I agree. You can't overlook the reigning and defending champions of the Euros. The question will just be, can they keep it going? Do they have the youth and the mixture of youth and experience that France and Belgium have? The answer is still kind of debatable. There's still a little bit. I would even put Belgium just a tad bit higher because of what Kevin De Bruyne and Romelu Lukaku can do. We saw that in their last match Kevin De Bruyne comes in the second half and immediately dismantles that Danish midfield and defense. It's going to be tough to stop that. But that's what makes football so beautiful. And I wish that the Philippines watched football as much as the rest of the world. It is such a beautiful, beautiful sport
Yes.
because of the fact that just one goal can separate you becoming the champions of Europe and not even making it past the group stages.
On another aspect, Aaron, how are things in Connecticut? Is it almost back to normal?
Yes, actually they are. Connecticut was one of the first to reach the herd immunity status here in the United States. One of the first 10 states to do that. I'm actually getting my second vaccination shot in a couple of days. I need to because I'm going to be flying to the Western Conference Finals and I'm going to be
Nice.
flying to the NBA Finals as well. So I can't get into a lot of the different areas without having a full vaccination card. So everything is getting back to normal. You know, even when you're on campus, you're still required to wear your face mask. They supply everyone with face masks and all that kind of stuff. But walking around, it's, fun to see people's faces. And most of all, it's just fun not to wear face shields. Like that is the best part about it. I'm just not wearing face shields anymore. I'm telling you guys, it's an amazing feeling.
I can imagine. So you're covering the WCF and the NBA Finals as a courtside reporter or um, analyst. What will you be doing at the?
I'm going to be doing one game for the Western Conference Finals for SportsCenter Australia. I will be doing their in-between quarter updates on like catch-up game recaps for 45 seconds for SportsCenter Australia rather. So I don't even know if I'm at this point if I'm going to Phoenix, Los Angeles, or Salt Lake City. I'll find out as the games go along. For the NBA Finals, though, I'm going to be doing the same thing for SportsCenter Australia. Every quarter recaps, and at the end, I'm going to be doing an entire SportsCenter show for SportsCenter Australia. It's crazy that I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be doing it inside the arena. I'm not going to be on the floor, I'm guessing, because it's mayhem right now. And the protocols are also very different. Like only certain amount of people are allowed within this certain level. Not everyone is going to be allowed into the press conference area as well. I know that that's still going to be remote. So I'm learning as much as you guys as we go along, because as I was saying, protocols are changing as the days go along here in the US and especially with the NBA.
Okay, so in this job, you're going to be using up a lot of flyer miles, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it gets you a nice free ticket back to Manila.
All right, back to you, Brian.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm so jealous of what you're gonna do.
Yeah, it's an incredible blessing to be able to be given this opportunity. I mean, not for one second have I looked at this entire situation and taken it for granted. I mean, even walking around campus, the fact that I look up and I see what a 5-year-old version of me was dreaming about come to fruition just takes away every bit of heartbreak and questions that I asked myself about myself in this industry in the Philippines. It makes it all better. And I know whenever in anything that I've done here, I know that it's not just me. I know that it's not my name that I know it's my name that's on the screen, but it's not my name that is behind it. As Vince said a while ago, no Filipino has ever gotten this far with learning everything that I know from the Philippines. There are the Pablo Torres and Cassidy Hubbard, of course, that fantastic at what they do, but they learned everything here. I learned everything scratching and clawing my way out of De La Salle, and doing all of these courtside reporting and all of that for Adamson. Who would have thought that a courtside reporter from Adamson would be given this type of opportunity? So I've been getting emails from a lot of kids from the Philippines that are saying, "Uy, kaya pala yan." And akala ko dati hindi pala pwede, hindi talaga ako aabot yan, pero kaya pala. So, I know that it is indeed my dream, but I know that it's proof to a lot of kids that had the same dream that it is possible as well.
Yeah, and you're serving as an inspiration to them, to a lot of the current ones who are doing courtside reporting.
Exactly. And a lot of kids that, like my nephew, who's like, 12, 13 years old, that has never even tried anything like this yet, but now sees that somebody that looks like him, or somebody that is Asian, that can do this, that can reach this level, that it is possible. And I know that everyone, of course, will always look at the Kai Sotos and all of these kind of guys and say, wow, they're going to make it into the NBA. They're going to make it into the big leagues. But for people like us, this is our NBA.
Yep.
I mean, this is the big leagues for us. This is making it for us. And I will be more than happy to try and inspire the next generation of sportscasters, because if I can get it this way, that means that the next generation will go even further past me. And I will be more than happy to help them get there.
Okay. So, well, you mentioned Kai Soto. I want to ask you, do you think he has the tools to make it to the NBA?
I think Kai does. I think Kai, if he has the right people in his ear, the people with, I guess, similar agendas. I'm not saying that the people that are behind him don't have that, but I'm noticing that there's the difference in culture is what's, I think, the hindrance to a lot of the things that are in his way. I think his experience in the NBL is going to be very, very vital for him. I think that just being in a professional situation, away from the way that professional leagues are in the Philippines, again, not saying anything wrong with it. It's a culture thing. The culture is what you need to have a different type of understanding on. And I would have loved to see him make this move a little bit earlier. One person that I think should make this move earlier is LeBron Lopez. The guy is very, very young. I would love to see him exposed to professional cultures outside of the Philippines, so he doesn't have some bad tendencies and bad learn some of the bad habits along the way. Hopefully he gets an experience very early on in his career, because he's still young, and he has that opportunity. When you look at the NBA, kasi, we're seeing players that are 19 years old making it in. Look at Devin Booker. He was 19, 18 years old, and you need to get into the league at that age. Because if you get into the league, you're not, how many people are going to be compazos in the league and be a rookie at 30? You're going to have to be extremely, extremely talented, extremely gifted, and extremely lucky as well. So you have to be able to get here as soon as possible and make jumps that nobody else has very early on in your career.
Spoke about LeBron Lopez, and we were talking earlier, if you watched the game earlier between Indonesia and Philippines, he actually made a good account of himself, and he drew some praises from Coach Tab Baldwin for being composed. That's what they said in the post-game interview.
See, and I agree. I mean, I've seen LeBron. I've seen like glimpses of him even when he was playing for one thing that a lot of people don't know is he was playing for LaSalle Green Hills. And he went to Ateneo, and there was a lot of clamor for him. But see, that's the difference between it. When there is clamor for talent and God-given physical ability. In the Philippines, the first thing that they do is, okay, we're going to try and get you to go to this high school instead of this high school. But in the US, if you are a 5-star recruit in high school, you're already being groomed for the NBA. You are looked at in that way. And that's what we need to start doing for our talents in the Philippines. If you see someone like LeBron Lopez, the idea should not be this guy is going to play for Ateneo or La Salle or UP or all of this when they get to college. No, it needs to be this guy is good at this level. Let's get him to, let's say, a European team, or let's get him to the NBL to try and learn there, or get him to a US NCAA squad. That's the way that the vision needs to be. It shouldn't be anymore, okay, we need to do this to get a championship for this school or this school. It needs to be, this kid has the talent. This kid is a world-class talent. What can we do to get him into the NBA? That is the way that we need to look at it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I don't know if he's gonna get more. I haven't really seen LeBron Lopez play that extensively, but based on what I saw earlier, he was very impressive.
Very
And
impressive.
Yeah, and he carried himself well. He carried himself well. My last question to you: you said you were able to watch the game against Korea. I'd like to know what was going on with you when you saw that game-winning shot by SJ Belangel.
Oh, I was going crazy. I was watching it on my phone, in my bed. I just woke up. It was like 7:30 in the morning, just all groggy, like, oh God, we're losing. And we were catching up at the time. And when SJ Belangel made that shot, I lost it. I was like screaming and going crazy, and I was so happy for him. And that's why at the tail end of my show for SportsCenter Asia, I had to give him a shout out. Like, I was trying to get the shot onto the show. We do not have the rights for the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers. So I was just like, okay, I have to find a way to write this into the show one way or another. And, I was able to do it. I shared it on my Instagram. But that's it right there. I mean, no matter where I am in the world, I'll always be a Pinoy, and I will always cheer for the Philippines, no matter what. I will represent the country in any which way I can, and I will cheer for them any which way I can. And I was just so happy that, of all the people to beat at the buzzer, South Korea, man, come on, man. You gotta love that. You gotta love that.
Yeah, it was always us before. That's why it's
Kami
so
naman,
sweet.
di ba? Tayo naman.
Oo, tayo naman. Makaisa man lang. All right, Vince, back to you.
Aaron, I'm sure you've had conversations with your colleagues who cover boxing. What do they think of Pacquiao Spence? Are they telling you your boy's going down, Aaron? Errol's going to send him packing. What are they telling you?
Well, as of right now, actually, it still hasn't reached our news cycle. Like, being that it's in August, our news cycle right now is concentrated most on the Euros, the NBA playoffs, and a lot of the MMA that's going on, because MMA is like doing very, very well, especially with that last week's event was just fantastic. But the conversation right now is, when it comes to Manny, is not a lot of people are really expecting him to win. Like, the conversation more is, okay, he's getting into another fight. It's, okay. They're not looking at it as Manny's going to come back, he's going to win, and then they're going to see if they could push for another, or like push for a fight with McGregor or all that. From what I'm feeling is that they know that he's not fully into this as well. They know that his eyes are a little bit more away from the ring and in a certain race that's coming up sometime soon.
Yeah. Okay. There's this kid. I'm sure you know about this kid who was recruited by Gonzaga. He's 7'1", and he plays 2, 3, 4, 5, and he shoots like Kevin Durant. Chet Holmgren. He's he's skinny as skinny.
Yes.
What do you see for this kid?
I see a lot of potential. I see a lot of potential for this kid. Um, and to go to a good school. I mean, again, it's all about finding the right school for you to get you onto that right path towards the NBA. And that's what a lot of athletes are learning now when it comes to the US NCAA. It's not anymore about trying to win a national championship. If you're going to try and win a national championship, you have to make sure that you are not one of the top picks, so to say. This was a great example of how you saw Kawhi Leonard, how you saw Kevin Durant go to Texas. You know, these teams are not necessarily going to win the national championship. Jalen Green, of course, going to the G League instead. You know, Gonzaga is a great place for him to go. He's going to get a lot of personal attention when it comes from his training. He is a very, very thin. He's very reed thin on his build, but that's how it goes. I mean, we remember Kevin Durant was the same exact way when he was in Texas. He was very, very thin. And to some extent, until now, Kevin Durant is really thin. And that's what we're learning with the way that the NBA and the way that the game is going. You can get away with that. And this is a great thing to look at if you are Kai Soto, because you can kind of build yourself the same way in terms of the way that you play the game. And if you do so, you can find a nice spot into the NBA. You know, we saw this with Poku in OKC, another player that is very, very thin and can find a way to make things work. So I think that this is going to be very interesting to see in could this be, and this build and the way that he plays at that height, is this going to be the future of NBA recruiting? Like, is it no longer the LeBron James extremely God-given talent in terms of build direction, you know, even the same way that you look at Russell Westbrook and all of that? Are we looking more at European style build of players making their mark and being the future of the NBA?
So, okay, you're in Connecticut now. Will you be seeing any UConn games this coming season?
Hopefully, I would love to. And being somebody that has been in God knows how many Ateneo LaSalle games, I would love to see what a US NCAA game feels like. You know what I mean? I mean, with us, it was always hati sa gitna. Okay, dito si green, dito si blue. Or like if you're watching the
Neutral
NCAA,
venue.
it's dito si pula, dito si blue. You know, it's always been split in the middle. So I would love to see what it would be like to be in a arena that is fully filled with to the rim with players with fans cheering for one side. Another one that I'm really excited for, and one of my other co-anchors, Phil Murphy, was trying to get me to go to, as I'm still trying to move into my house, is he wants me to go to a Bellator fight, a Bellator fight card, and I've never been to a US level MMA production. I mean, I've been to a URCC, obviously, to our extent, it is very nice. I mean, ONE FC, I've had a couple opportunities, but I was never able to go. But to be able to go to a Bellator or go to hopefully a UFC fight somewhere down the road, I would be so happy and so excited to do that.
You know, Aaron, I'm sure you've noticed we're seeing the dawn or the emergence of our athletes globalized, experiencing globalization. I mean, you have our basketball players leaving the country, plying their trade elsewhere. I think it's just a matter of time before we see a fully homegrown Filipino make it to the NBA. What do you think? Just a matter
I
of
think
time.
that I think that it will happen. I mean,
Yes.
it will definitely happen. The question will now remain on when. And again, I can honestly say that it is not because of the talent of the Filipinos in basketball. I think that the Filipino has amazing talent in basketball, all the way up because of the fact that we are a grassroots nation when it comes to our basketball. We've been, teaching kids to do this since they could barely walk. We have them starting to dribble their ball. And I've seen it firsthand from my nephews. My brother has them, learning how to play basketball faster than they could learn how to talk. It's really a cultural thing. Is the goal to get players to the NBA, or is the goal to win championships in the PBA? Is the goal to win championships in college? Is the goal championships in high school, in the juniors division? When you set the goal, then the path to it changes. And if the people at the helm will set goals, okay, and be like the way that Belgium did it with their national football team, when they're in this golden era of their team where it was Romelu Lukaku, Kevin De Bruyne, Eden Hazard, these type of players, Axel Witsel, and taking the world by storm. It was because they said we wanted to have the greatest generation of footballers we have ever seen. And the way that they did that was, it was no longer about being the greatest footballers in Belgium. It was to have the greatest footballers in the world. When you change your perspective, the roadmap changes with it. So once the culture in the Philippines, and Tab Baldwin has touched on this so many times, and I will echo what he says because I agree entirely. When the culture changes on what is important, and because you can't try and say, we want somebody that is so good that he's going to be the best player in the UAAP or the best player in the NCAA, and suddenly say he's ripe for the NBA. That's not the case. That's not the case. We need to change what is important to Philippine basketball, and that will change where our athletes are going.
What other, well, okay, what other sports are you looking to watch in the US? Baseball, perhaps American football, ice hockey even?
I actually have a baseball show here as well. So a lot of people, again, just to clarify what I'm doing here, I mean, a lot of people think that I'm on the US version of Sports Center. I will hopefully get there eventually. But I'm working a lot more with the ESPN International. So I have a show that's called Caps Off that I will be working on once I come back from the finals, when my other partner is going to be in Japan for his stint in the Olympics. So I'm going to be watching everything. I mean, it's my job to watch everything. I used to play baseball. I used to actually be Philippine team for baseball when I was growing up. I was on the Little League World Series team, but I didn't have my passport ready, so I wasn't able to join that side of things. But I love baseball. It's my first love. The best part about it, though, is when it comes to the international market and the market that I'm working for, things like ice hockey and all that don't really pertain much to them. So I don't really need to watch a lot of it. I would love to sit down and watch, a hockey game. And, I want to compare the way that the culture of the sport is in both. I mean, I've been lucky enough to watch and to be at like the SEA Games and see that kind of stuff. And I would like to think that I understand the way that sports culture, in terms of the way that the athletes are, in terms of the way the media is, and in terms of it, me being a fan of it, is in the Philippines and is in the Southeast Asian region, and to some extent, maybe even the Asian region. So it's interesting for me to, even just as a sports fan, to see how they are here, and how they appreciate their sports, how they sit down on a Sunday to watch, Monday Night Football or something like that. See, even that, I have to change my mind when it comes, when it's that way. It's like, okay, Monday Night Football for them, how do they enjoy it? Like, Like for instance, the craziest thing for me still is to sit down every night and watch the NBA. That is so crazy for me to watch basketball at night. To watch the UFC and have a glass of whiskey instead of having lunch with my family. Like the time zones alone, it's a very different when it comes to the culture, the times that you're watching it. So I'm enjoying every second of watching all the different sports and changing and understanding the culture along the way.
Brian?
Yeah, we were talking about the international market for our local athletes. I don't know, Aaron, if you've heard about the case about the Riveras. I mean, about the Japan V League. Have you heard of it? Would you care weigh on that? Or would you dare, let me rephrase, would you dare weigh on that?
Oh God, Brian, you're gonna get me in trouble here.
You can always say I'll pass.
No.
No comment. You can say no comment, Aaron.
No. This is something that I've been an advocate for the longest time. Whenever it comes to this type of situation, I believe the PBA athletes, the PBA players need to have a union. Okay. And they need, and this goes back to what I was saying a while ago when it comes to the relationship with the media. The players need to have a voice. The athletes in the country, regardless of any league, need to have a voice, because I think that we are taking for granted what these athletes mean to the country. Whether it is Kiefer Ravena being denied a chance to go to Japan and the term "we own you forever" being used, I don't think that that's fair to our athletes. And that goes all the way down to Heidelin Diaz having to go on Twitter, our Olympic silver medalist, having to beg for money to be able to train. There needs to be something that has to be done. And I know that there is so much money in sports. There is an insane amount of money that is in sports, whether it is from the private sector or the government sector. There's so much money in sports. And I think that our athletes need to be represented in this and not be afraid and not be scared to say their concerns, because konti na nga lang yung nakukuha nila, baka makuha pa sa kanila. So in the PBA, I think that there should be a union, that the players need to have at least a little bit of say that is going on. I'm not saying that they get the same level of say that the NBA players have, which is probably arguably the most say in any league in the world. But maybe just a little bit of, hey, baka naman pwedeng ganito. Maybe we can have, maybe I can not be under contract for the remainder of my life. You know what I mean? Maybe I can have an opt-out. Maybe if I'm not under contract with you guys anymore, I can sign with a different league. Like maybe just something like that. The players need to have the chance to say those kinds of things.
Okay, so you've been following it.
I will forever follow. I will forever follow Philippine sports. I've been ingrained, and I've been following it my entire life. I might change addresses, but I will forever follow Philippine sports.
All right. Let me go to the international scene. I'm just curious. I mean, you've been talking to a lot of people. Were there ever times that you learned about something and you were told not to report it? I mean,
never.
Off the record. Oh, so everything is really on record.
Here?
Yeah. Based on
Here,
in any sport.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
If as long as it is something that I have heard personally, I know for a fact, and I have empirical evidence for it, I can say that is the way that it is here. I've never been told to censor anything that I personally know, and I am forever grateful for that now, that I can do that. So until I have a little bit more understanding of how things are here, I will make sure that all the information that I know in terms of the Philippine and Asian sports scene I will make sure to keep that to myself for now. But when I know up to what extent I can, I will eventually, hopefully, be able to share it with everybody.
That's why I envy you so much. Anyway, Vince.
All right. So my last question for you, Aaron, is
Sure.
ESPN looking at the Philippines as a possible, I don't know, funnel for look for more Aaron Ataydes? Have they asked you? Is there anyone? Are there anyone else like you back home? Are they looking at the country as a possible pool or I don't know source for on-air talent to create more diversity?
I hope so. And to be honest, it's not just the Philippines. This is opening up a door for Southeast Asia. This is opening up a door for Asians in particular. I mean, if we really think about it, it's all like Asian Americans that are here that are on ESPN, but there's not really any Asians and homegrown Asians. So yes, this is opening up a door potentially for the Philippines, for Southeast Asia, whether it is Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, Malaysia, all of the countries, and I think that they're waiting to see how I do. So when I say that I have an entire country behind me, I do also understand that the responsibility of, if I don't do well, I might shut that door for everyone else. So I have to do good here. I have to show them what we can do, to show them, pwede nga naman pala yung mga taga-Pilipinas. No? Okay naman din pala sila. Yung tingin mo si Aaron, parang pwede naman.
Right, Brian.
Okay, I'd just like to chime in on that, the boxing things. What is your take on those YouTubers versus boxers thing? And the latest I heard is that Oscar De La Hoya is gonna fight an MMA fighter. What's your take on that?
The whole Paul situation is very interesting, because I think that it is I think it's good for boxing but bad for boxers, if that makes sense. I think that it is also good for smart boxers and bad for shy boxers. I don't think that there was ever any time, except if you go all the way back to the heyday of Manny, that there were this many eyes watching boxing. And it's good, again, good for the sport. If you think about it, this is good for Elorde. Like, this will bring people inside the Elorde gyms, but, sige, ito na, kaya ko maging YouTube fighter, ganyan. It's great for those. Like, it's great for the sport of boxing. There's going to be more people interested in boxing. But it's not going to be good for boxers that are prize fighters, that are looking at getting belts and stuff like that and chasing that. When Logan Paul and, these guys are, and these TikTokers are, you had Aaron Carter versus Lamar Odom, and that was a $50 pay-per-view, and there were people that bought that. $50 people are paying to watch Lamar Odom and Eric Carter, but nobody's paying to watch these other fighters that put in so much time and all of that. So I think that it's coming full circle for a lot of the promoters that took advantage of a lot of fighters. And it could eventually hit the MMA market, because Logan Paul was, I mean, you might not like him, but he has good points where it's like, how are, people in the UFC not making as much money as I am? Like I'm a nobody, but you have people in the UFC that are not making a tenth of what he's making. It's insane. So I think that there needed to be a something in contact sports and something in mixed martial arts that was going to change the way that it was presented and the way that it was sold. And it was kind of like a filibuster to the entire thing, something that would shake up the way that the money in that scenario and in that sport was going to be dealt. And we finally got it. And whether it is for better or for worse, it will be changed forever.
I don't know if you caught it when Clarissa Shields made the jump to the MMA
Oh yeah,
bandwagon. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so she won over Brittany Elkin. What do you think? It's good. It's a good move for her.
I again, you go wherever the money is going to be, and I think it's interesting for female boxers because there is more money in female MMA than there is in female boxing. So I understand her decision to do that. I understand that this is going to open a lot of doors, and she realized immediately that MMA training and boxing training are very, very different.
Yes.
So this is all part of it. These little moves where boxers are going to be going and trying MMA, and now we're seeing MMA guys trying boxing, and it these are all small changes that will eventually steamroll and snowball into big changes down the road. And these big changes are going to be caused, and these small changes are caused by these moments where you're seeing non-boxing guys or non-MMA guys get into the different realms. But let's not forget, we're seeing the Pauls right now do that. But the first guy to really do this was Conor McGregor. I mean, let's not forget, he was MMA, but hey, I'm a boxer now. Let's go against Floyd Mayweather. That set the tone for everything else until now.
Yeah. Well, I could go on and ask you a lot of questions, but I think we're running out of time. So I'm going to give the floor back to Vince.
And Aaron is on his day off.
Yes,
He's only off in the week, so.
I gotta go buy some furniture, guys.
See, yeah.
Well, okay, we have a few minutes left. Aaron, some final words.
You know, I at the end of the day, I think the one thing that we can all just look at here is I am a massive sports fan that was given an opportunity that this is a generational opportunity. And I might not come in with the best analysis or all that, because I never really was an analyst. And you could really tell from a lot of things that and the way that I answered today, it really is about telling stories for me. I love telling the stories of the athletes. I love telling stories of matches, of games. Of course, it's piggybacked off of some analysis, but I look at the way that the game is through the eyes of a storyteller. And that's how I've always done things. And if you are a kid right now that is watching, or even an adult that is watching, and you had a dream and you had an opportunity to do and chase that dream in every single small way to do it, make sure that you did it. People might look at me and say, oh, this guy got here because he was on ESPN 5 and he was in Sports Center and that's why he was given that. That is absolutely true. But the 15 years of sports broadcasting that got me to that point was what got me to this point. You might say, oh, he got one big break. No, I had 100 big breaks and I had a million small breaks before that. To get to this point, I had to go through every single part of it. Every single job that I got was necessary for me to get to this point. So if your goal, and like I just to connect it again, when you change your goal and your perspective on what that goal is, the road to get there changes as well. So if you're a dreamer, dream that dream. And if somebody tells you your dream will not be ever achieved, do not listen to them, because the only voice that matters in chasing that dream is the voice inside your head. So dream that dream, chase it. And my dad told me long ago, Iho, don't listen to them. When you shoot for the stars and you miss, you'll still be over the moon.
And on that note, we thank you, Aaron. It's been more than just a pleasure conversing with you tonight. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Always fun talking sports. I miss talking about Philippine sports. So thank you guys for having that and giving me that this week.
Thanks, Aaron.
Bye,
Brian,
guys.
your final words?
Yeah, I'm just, well, I still have a lot of questions, but never mind. I enjoyed every minute of it. Thanks so much, Aaron. It was really very fun and informative to get some insights from you. Even though I asked one a bit that put you on the spot, but I'm sorry.
I'll answer that in my autobiography when I'm completely done with everything. So you guys can stay tuned for that.
Anyway, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. Thank you, Vince.
All right. And so ends another episode of Sports for All. Tomorrow night on the program, we have Nico Huelgas and Coach Jojo Macalintal to tell their triathlon story. So tonight, so long, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Peace out.